Te tiro whakaurunga hau ki ngā maunga whakaherehere o te matua Māui. Ka heke whakararo ki ngā wai kaukau a kui mā a koroma. Te wai o te ngaru e te wai o he nganga te tūtai kuri, te ngaru roro moko tuararo ki rangatira. Ka tai ngā aua ki te moana nui a kiwa, ngā aua whakairo whenua tai noa ki te ngutu aua. This is Te Whanganui a Ōrotu, sometimes known as the Ahuriri Estuary. People associate the word Ahuriri with the whole of Napier, but before we got the name Ahuriri, the whole name of Napier was Te Whanganui a Ōrotu, the great harbour of Ōrotu. So my family lived and occupied this area for over 600 years, and it's because of this area providing the abundance of kai that my family have been able to live and occupy this area for so long. It was a meeting place for all our hapu to meet and collect kai together. There are 7 hapu that sit on the edges of this area, and each hapu has their own rich history. 2 hapu to the north, we have 3 hapu to the west, we have many hapu to the south. When my ancestors first settled here, 90 to 95% of Napier was all underwater. We actually had 16 islands within this area. Fishing islands, they would have been fighting islands, they would have been fortified. Families would have occupied those islands. Whenever you're overseas and you fly back into Napier, you have the Ōtātara Pā to the south, or you have Heipipi Pā to the north. And so whenever you see those 2 significant mountains, you know you're home.
When I arrived back into Napier, this is the gateway, and this is the reminder of how we are part of a very large environmental being. The estuary itself is very important ecologically, environmentally, culturally, and from a geomorphological point of view.
It is a beautiful opportunity to connect with nature. We've got these awesome cycleways. I don't know if you've been along them, but I've cycled them. And you can just see the native birds, wildlife so close to us, that ability to connect with it.
The estuary is hugely significant. It's one of the biggest on the east coast. Because it's so diverse in its species, it's very important. And if we take the example of the kuaka or godwit, which flies here from non-stop around the world, it's obviously very important to them, and it should be equally important to us.
So the wetlands, this area was quite important because this is where the fresh water met the seawater. Although we all had our traditional boundaries, Te Whanganui o Ōrotu was a stomping ground for all hapu and marae of Ahuriri Napier. 1931 earthquake happened and we lost 90 to 95% of our wetlands.
It is a complex mix of salt water, coastal water coming in, and fresh water coming out. And it's very, very important to keep that balance. The work that we do in town is to check the waterways that are leading into the estuary to make sure they're the best that they can be in relation to the levels of contaminants coming out of the city. We're looking at trends over time scientifically to work out what is happening, where the hot spots are, so that we can put the right sort of treatment devices in the right place.
Estuaries in general are fantastic carbon sinks. They're also teeming with wildlife, ridiculous amounts of biodiversity.
Because a lot of traditional waterways flows into this area, people treat them as drains and creeks. They're actually traditional waterways, and we want to clean those areas up. If we look after those waterways will look after our land, the land will look after our food, and then our food will look after us.
Estuaries are considered kind of filtration systems. So basically water comes off the hills, goes down the rivers, and then comes out into estuaries, and then the plants within those estuaries filter that water before it heads out to sea. So they're effectively a way to clean water before it goes out to sea. Unfortunately, they're obviously not used to the sort of contaminants that humans might put into that water.
The estuary is taking a lot of the contaminants that are washed off the roads and roofs and our homes and concrete areas in the city. Even washing your car, if you have sediment and brake dust and those sort of things coming off your car and you wash it frequently, and it's done on a concrete area which drains straight into the curb and channel, then all of those contaminants collectively are ending up in the estuary.
If wetlands matter to you, then communicating it, having those conversations, talking to people about why they're important. A big part of protecting the environment and taking action on climate change is protecting estuaries, and we need to be having those conversations.
It's a great area for all our hapu to share stories and teaching our future generations on how to look after our environment, our traditions, our tikanga and kawa.
One of the parts of Napier that makes us who we are, I don't think it's given enough credit for that, but this sort of wetland in the centre of a city is fabulous.
We're very vulnerable as individuals, but we can make that little difference ourselves to make this sort of place so much better.
This is actually quite unique. I think it's really important. I think that there's no way that we're going to make a difference if we're not able to touch and see and experience what we're trying to save. So yeah, I think it's absolutely a tonga.